Part 4 of The Whistling Monsters by B. Wallis. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Ben Tucker. Part 4. As Vance arose to unsteady balance by the aid of his partner's arm, a dark shadow swept above them across the rubble slope, and drove with a loud splash into the pool and vanished amid the flying foam. "What's that?" exclaimed the two startled men as with one voice, whipping around to eye the agitated waters where rings of speeding ripples sped to the shore. Yet nothing but these broke the somber expanse of water. Whatever had dropped had vanished. With unity of thought they wheeled around to stare again at the queer thing perched above. It, too, had vanished. "Why, it must have been that brute leaping," cried Vance. "Beats me. Never saw the mate of it," asserted the older man as both once more turned to gaze at the still heaving waters. But the pool was no longer untenanted, for gently rising and falling with the slight ripples, there floated the bulbous dome and yellow drapery of the queer thing they had wondered at. Now they could discern the monster in more detail, and it was quite clear that this bizarre structure was as interested in them as they were in it. The two large circular spots they had glimpsed were undeniable eyes, which with unwinking stare observed their least move intently. Coal-black, glassy, oval, lidless. They yet contained that indefinable something that the intelligent eye alone has command of. And the seamed and wrinkled dome in which they were set vastly emphasized the impression that a cold, calculating entity was coolly scheming some malignant move. Too, they perceived that this creature was provided with formidable mandibles, dull white horn-like prongs which rested, crossed, just beneath the implacable eyes. Sharp-curved and tapering, they looked capable of inflicting a terrible wound, though the puffed and puckering surface behind them appeared repulsively flaccid. All around this queer, nodding dome floated the thick membrane from which long tentacles, half submerged, sprang at close intervals. For a moment, the men regarded this inexplicable thing in blank amazement. "I don't like the cut of that thing. It ain't no way scared," said Deegan in a low voice. "It's giving us the once-over before starting something." "Looks like it. By George, yes, it's on the move," cried Vance, eyeing it uneasily, and with reason, for of a sudden the heavy, wide membrane had moved, contracted rearward, and apparently impelled by the rapid thrust, the creature shot forward with the undulating ease and celerity of a fish. Again the movement was repeated, bringing it closer to the bank on which they stood, and it was coming with deadly earnestness straight for them. Yet the whole extraordinary creature was so obviously of such a flaccid, unstable texture that one could not view its approach with serious concern. And yet the brute was heading straight for them. "Sheer off, you blasted abortion!" exclaimed Deegan, somewhat contemptuously as he snatched up a couple of small rocks and sent them whizzing viciously at the nearing thing. Thud. The first stone had struck it between the great saucer eyes, appeared to sink deep into the conical, creased surface, then fell aside with a distinct rebound, as though impelled by something akin to the elasticity of rubber. The second missile flew skidding across the streaming membrane. Instantly its progress was arrested, and long, thin, snaky tentacles arose from the water and lashed with savage whippings, churning the vicinity into a miniature vortex of swirling foam. Something in the sight seemed to quicken a dormant ferocity within them, and in a flash the two men were snatching at the rubble and raining stone after stone upon the wounded brute. Insensate rage warming and limbering their powerful muscles. Though Vance was yet unsteady on his feet, at such short range the fusillade would have felled a steer. In a moment the flailing arms lashed but feebly, then subsided to a mere convulsive twitching on the surface, though in such convulsion of half-submerged tangled loops and knots that it was impossible to descry any particular effect of the bombardment. It had drifted close to the beach, yet neither man seemed eager to view more closely the mingled mass. They stared for a little in silence. Then Vance said slowly, "What's happened to its mates?" And for the first time it came to them that the weird whistling had ceased, and not a whisper of sound echoed from the grim walls. Yet the silence was as the soundless vibrations of alert, watching things, saturating the air with the intensity of their desire. "Hanged if I know," said Deegan. Then with sudden decision, I ain't stuck on this layout. Let's beat it. Can you make it? He queried. Come on, I'll give you a hand until you limber up, he added impatiently as he caught the younger man by the elbow and pulled him, not ungently, in the direction they had come. 1 second, there's something I want, said Vance quietly as he freed himself and in a couple of rapid, unsteady strides reached the dripping black face of the forbidding ledge. Quickly snatching up a large, jagged fragment, he struck a few heavy blows where a wandering vein of rougher surface, though of similar hue, ran diagonally upward. Looking closely, one might note that numerous similar thin streaks meandered across the wall. Something, 2 small fragments no larger than a pigeon's egg and curiously oval in their cleavage, dropped into his waiting hand. These he slipped into a hip pocket as he swung around and regained his open-eyed partner. What are you doing? I'll gamble there ain't a grain of yellow in the whole caboodle, cried Deegan, contemptuously impatient. Likely, but it's interesting, said Vance shortly, and Deegan, flicking upon the black wall a shrewd glance of disapproval that but confirmed the indifference with which he had, from the first, viewed its somber nakedness, again caught his partner by the arm, and straightway they hurried toward the neck-shaped outlet of the canyon. End of Part 4.